Okay, I call the 2,396th meeting of the Milwaukie City Council to order. This meeting is being held in person at City Hall and by video conference. The public may participate in this meeting by coming to City Hall or joining the Zoom webinar. The meeting is being broadcast live on the city's YouTube channel and Comcast Cable Channel 30 within city limits. There will be opportunities for the public to speak during this meeting. If you would like to address council, you may come to City Hall or participate via Zoom. If you are interested in speaking, please let staff know by filling out a yellow comment card for those at City Hall or emailing ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov for those on Zoom. When it is time to take public comments, staff will monitor the comment cards, email inbox, and Zoom participant list and chat. We will take comments in the order they are received and seen. Comments may be emailed to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. We ask that all Zoom participants who intend to speak label their Zoom username to show their first and last names for the record. Spanish translation services are available upon request. The public is asked to request translation and other meeting accessibility services at least 48 hours before the meeting. For more information, contact the city recorder at 503-786-7502. Servicios de traducción en español está disponible cuando sea solicitado. Se pide al público que solicite servicios de traducción y otros servicios de accesibilidad por lo menos 48 horas antes de la reunión. Para obtener más información, llama al secretario de la ciudad a 503-786-7502. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The City of Milwaukie respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya, etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. Okay, it's time for announcements. Nominations continue to be accepted for the 2023 Volunteer of the Year Award. Anyone who lives in Milwaukie or is a member of a nonprofit or business that serves the Milwaukie community is eligible. Nominations can be submitted using an online form at Engage Milwaukie until February 14th. Celebrate the Lunar New Year with a traditional lion dance performance at the Letting Library on Sunday, February 11th at 3 p.m. The event is sponsored by Friends of the Letting Library. The Clackamas Education Service District's Early Intervention Team will be at the Letting Library on Monday, February 12th from 10 a.m. to noon to provide free hearing and development screenings for any child ages 0 to 5. Another opportunity to celebrate the Lunar New Year is on Sunday, February 18th from noon to 2:30 p.m. at the Milwaukie Community Center. The event will include activities, crafts, music, and dance. There's a suggested donation of $5 for attendees 18 years of age and older. And I know there's also a third Lunar New Year celebration being hosted by the Vietnamese community out at Clackamas High School, but I don't have all the details on that. But if anybody watching is interested, I can get the details, so email me, I guess. Or look for the Vietnamese Community of Oregon, VNCO, for details on their Lunar New Year celebration. Join the community conversation called Housing and Belonging on Wednesday, February 21st at 6 p.m. at the Leading Library. The event, facilitated by Paul Soucy from the Oregon Humanities Conversation Project, will explore common assumptions and perspectives about the experience of houselessness. Lastly, save the date for a multi-project open house on Thursday, February 29th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. here at City Hall. Drop in anytime to learn more and ask questions about 4 projects. The Oregon Department of Transportation's Route 224 Improvement Project, in which they will repave from 17th Avenue to Rusk Road. The the City of Milwaukee's Monroe Street Greenway Project, which I have been getting questions on, so I think there are people who are interested in an update on that. The City of Milwaukee's Transportation System Plan Update, which is an ongoing project, and the Kellogg Creek Restoration and Community Enhancement Project, better known as the Free Kellogg Creek, Get Rid of That Dam project. For more information about these events, please visit the city's homepage at milwaukeeoregon.gov or call 503-786-7555. And I would just also highlight 2 opportunities for those of you who like to get out into the parks and help improve our habitat for the animals and birds and everything else. There are 2 opportunities to do that. One is this Saturday in Minthorn Springs. The second Saturday of every month, there's a work party in Minthorn Springs, co-sponsored by the Wetlands Conservancy, which owns that property, and the Milwaukie Parks Foundation. That runs from 9:30 to 12 on this Saturday, February 10th. And then next Saturday, February 17th, the North Clackamas Watersheds Council is having a restoration volunteer event at the Milwaukie Presbyterian Church on Lake Road. And that will be cleaning up ivy and blackberry and other invasive species along Kellogg Lake. Anybody who wants to get out and get a little dirty, those are 2 opportunities to do that.
Mayor Beatty?
Yes?
I looked it up, and the Vietnamese Community of Oregon Lunar New Year celebration is February 17th at Clackamas High School.
Great, thank you very much for looking that up. February 17th, Clackamas High School, I believe it's like 11:30 or something like that.
Looks like it runs 10:30 to 5, but there's also an evening event as well.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Anybody else have announcements? Yeah.
I have 2 announcements. Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to mention that we're 6 days into Black History Month. And for those of you who are looking for opportunities to learn a little bit more, listen a bit more, reflect on the history and the future of Black and African American members of our community, I encourage you to start talking to each other. You can also hop down the street to Spoken Word. They have a display of a lot of different books that you can start your journey with, or add a new chapter to that journey. If you are also looking for a place for books, you can look at Third Eye Bag, which is located in Southeast Portland, so not in our immediate community, but it is Black owned and operated, and they have an amazing selection. So those of us who are in positions of responsibility and leadership in our communities, I just encourage us all to think about how we can amplify voices this month and every month. And then the second announcement that I have is that we will have some of these packets for deactivating and disposing of prescription medicines or really any type of drug. The Clackamas County Public Health Division has provided these for us, and so Councilor Khosrowbadi and I, we're going to be stuffing them at 2 locations until we're out. And so thanks to Anne for your help in getting the locations secured. They'll be at the Letting Library and the Public Safety Building. And what you do is open up this little baggie, fill it halfway with water. You add any medications that you might have, you know, that are expired, or sometimes if someone passes, or if you happen to come across them in your neighborhood, you can add these to the packet, you seal it up and shake it, and then it'll deactivate and destroy those medications. So there's lots of information in English and Spanish on these little handouts. And if anyone is interested in taking a couple of these home, just let us know. We've got them in the council office. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Counselor Massey?
Yeah, the Friends of the Letting Library recently held their annual meeting. And I just wanted to sort of bring it to the public's attention that that group raised a little over $50,000 for our library last year. And so I want to thank the residents for supporting the Friends of the Library and their book sales and plant sales and everything like that, because those funds underwrite a lot of the children's programs at the library.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So with that, we will move on to community comment. This is the part of the agenda during which council will hear community member comments regarding city business that is not already on the agenda. Before we begin, is there follow-up from the January 16th community comments, Ms. Ober?
There were comments around 29th Avenue, and we have placed that on the council first meeting in March, so that will be the update.
Okay, thank you. I think we might have some more of those tonight. For those in person who wish to speak, please submit a yellow comment card found on the table just outside the chamber's door. If you are on Zoom, please use the raise hand reaction to alert staff that you wish to speak. And when instructed to begin, click the microphone option to unmute yourself. If you're calling in via telephone through Zoom and would like to make a comment, dial *9 to raise your hand. You may also submit a comment via email to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. Before you make your comments, please state your name and city of residence for the record. If you would like the city to follow up with you, please submit your contact information to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. As council has other business items on the agenda this evening, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Because information provided during community comments may be new, this is not the time for discussion, but the city manager will respond at the March 5th meeting, as was noted, or someone will respond at the March 5th meeting to comments about the Greenway, or about the 29th Street, and any other comments the city manager will respond at the next city council meeting. So I have 2 yellow cards, and oh, there's a bunch more. Okay. There's a bunch more. Okay. Go ahead and come on up, Mr. Clark. You're the first one I have. So, Elvis Clark. Yeah.
Hello, Elvis Clark. I live in the Ardenwell, Johnson Creek neighborhood, and I'm an active member of the NDA there, and focus on transportation and public safety things. I provided written comments, which are in the night's packet. I'm hoping that council will intervene and help speed the installation of stop signs on the cross streets intersecting the 29th Greenway. There are 8 cross streets with only one having a stop sign. That's on Roswell. Drivers going west coming through or onto the 29th Greenway sometimes don't exercise caution, as there are no stop signs or other signage on the approaching Greenway. So, to the approaching Greenway. So we are getting near misses of vehicles colliding with bicycles on the Greenway. Adding stop signs on the west-bound cross streets intersections would be great. It is something we should do, And it should have been done yesterday, but with the minutes, I went back and looked at the May 7th, 2022 Budget Committee meeting, and it seemed like we might move that towards that already, but we haven't. A human life is worth about $12 million according to the Department of Transportation. Maybe it's more precious, life is maybe more precious than that, but especially young ones that are playing on the 29th Greenway. The cost of six or seven stop signs is minimal. Let's not go through another spring and summer waiting on the standard processes for getting this signage put in for the Greenway to save some life. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jay Panagos.
Good evening, everyone. For those that don't know me, my name is Jay Panagas. I'm Chair of Public Safety Advisory Committee, member of Bike Milwaukie, avid cyclist, and I'm in unincorporated North Clackamas County. I'm here to kind of support the residents and the users of the 29th Street area and the Greenway, both users and residences. Stop signs and signage is needed to help prevent a safety incident from occurring. As Elvis just stated, all along 29th. If you've ever walked on 29th or ridden on 29th, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's not that heavily populated area and there isn't that much traffic, but it only takes one incident for someone to get hurt for, it would just be terrible. I'm hoping that City Council will agree to stop signs are needed and will act on that as soon as possible. Safety incidents that require being addressed, whether in neighborhoods, greenways, MUPs, etc., it should be addressed immediately before another incident happens. I think we should be proactive instead of reactive. And I think, in conclusion, what could possibly happen at 29th could happen anywhere in the city of Milwaukie, in any neighborhood, on any trail. And we've got so much improvements going on in the city of Milwaukie, whether it be the new King Road multi-use path, the Linwood path, 43rd. We've got a lot of different new areas going in, and we really need to focus on incidents that happen. So if 29th can maybe be kind of a beacon for the rest of the city, that would be awesome. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Grunseth?
Sam.
Oh, Sam. Sorry, Sam. You should be a doctor. No. Maybe you are.
Do I need to press this button?
The red light's on, so you're good.
Okay, good. Yeah, so, I'm Sam Gunseth, another neighbor on 29th Avenue there. Sounds like a lot of people have already spoken to this issue. I don't need to line it out, but I'll just add my voice. I'm a father of a almost 2-year-old who is going to be one of I think a crop of babies that are on 29th Avenue, that all of whom we've met. It's a wonderful street, lots of pedestrian and cyclist traffic. And I've heard from a lot of my neighbors the same concern that people going westbound, it's a hill and people always go a little faster than they should when they're going downhill. And then you have that crossing a greenway and it feels like an accident waiting to happen, especially with all these young kids who are going to be very mobile in the next 2-3 years. So I'm glad to see all of the neighborhood involvement and have an opportunity to speak to you all. But, that's it for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for coming. Beatrice McLeod?
Wow, you did well. You can never say the McLeod part. And I didn't write very clearly. I live on Olson and 29th, and I've lived there for about 27 years. And then I've lived in the neighborhood down further north for another 10 years. So I've watched that road and I've raised kids there, and it's always scared me. And at one point I tried, not knowing what to do with Milwaukie City Council, I tried to get some energy raised years ago for stop signs, and I was told that could never happen. And it's just, I can't tell you how many near misses I've seen. And along with wanting stop signs coming down the hill, which are wonderful, I don't know what the rest of the neighborhood feels, but because I live, part of my house is facing on 29th, I'll tell you, I'll wake up at like 11 o'clock at night and cars are going, they've got to be going at least 40 or 50 through there. And I've seen bicyclists who have lights on and whatnot, you know, are commuting to their work on that road late at night. So it just scares the pants off me that we're not going to have a huge problem there. One of my thoughts is, because these stop signs apparently are for coming down the hill or up the hill, is that really we should look at something on 29th, because often people are trying to avoid buses or slower things on 32nd, and they'll come down to 29th and shoot all the way through without even looking up the hill sometimes. And that's another big concern of mine, whether it's speed bumps or whatever it is. But down the hill would certainly be a good start, but it's not going to affect the greenway where bikes are on. And that area is a heavily traveled area by walkers and bicyclists. Somebody said it's pretty quiet, that area, but I meet people all the time walking down there saying, this is a fantastic neighborhood. I love walking it. I just love it, you know, but they don't know what's around the corner, because I have seen very near misses. So thank you.
Thank you for coming out. Jacob Sherman?
Good evening, Mayor Beatty, councilors. For the record, Jacob Sherman. I use he, him pronouns, live in the Ardenwald neighborhood, serve as chair of the Planning Commission, here as a resident though tonight. Also trying to represent the over 130 plus signatures of the petition that you see on the front page there. At 2022 Carefree Sunday, myself and other neighbors set up a booth and collected over 130 signatures of folks asking you all to help make some of our greenways safer. Also, kind of before I begin, wanted to note for the record, I'm aware of at least 4 families that have submitted comment that I didn't see in the packet tonight. So maybe those could kind of get included. I'm happy to follow up, Scott, with you. I think really just here tonight to ask you all to be consistent. To be consistent with the existing adopted transportation system plan, which provides very clear guidance for how greenways should be designed and protected. To be consistent with national best practice outlined by the National Association of City Transportation Officials, who also lay out greenway design standards that are being adopted across cities across the United States. To be consistent with the greenways within the city. On the second page of what I turned in was an activity that my children and I took over the weekend, where we drove around the entire city, down every greenway. And the great news is the vast majority of our greenways actually have stop signs on them that stop cross traffic. When you look at the orange, though, on that map, those are the places that don't have stop signs on the cross traffic. Most of those places are in Ardenwald on the 29th Avenue Greenway, as well as down in Island Station. So let's be consistent. Let's take some of the approaches we're doing in other parts of the city and also implement it in Ardenwald. And then I think last but not least, we just ask you all to be consistent and use some of the safe fees that are being collected from us to implement some of these traffic safety projects. Really thank you for your time. Also want to thank the engineering department. I think some of the moves they've made recently, thinking about 42nd and King Road in particular. I know there was a lot of backlash on social media about that. As a resident myself, I've almost been hit in a car at that intersection twice. And so I really appreciate the city engineer, the new city engineer, stepping up and making a hard call there. And hopefully we can make something that's a lot less of a hard call here. So thank you all for your time. Look forward to talking more on March 5th.
Thank you. And I will note that Scott did forward some other emails to us today, so they all get put in the packet afterwards. the packet goes to print on Fridays, right? So, yeah. So that's everybody for whom I have yellow cards. Do you have more people online, Scott?
There is someone online, but I don't think they want to speak to this issue. I don't think they want to.
No
staff.
one's raising high.
No,
hands?
it's a staff person. I don't think they want to speak.
Oh, okay.
And I will say that we have a total of 8 pieces of correspondence on this issue, 6 of which we received yesterday or today. So they will be in the record, like the mayor said.
Great. All right. Well, as noted at the beginning, March 5th, we'll be talking about this. Have some engineering staff and others. So please come back and join us that day. And you're welcome to stay if you want to stay. But that's the end of the public comment part of the. Thank you. All right. Tonight's consent agenda includes minutes of the City Council December 12th, 2023 special session, December 19th, 2023 work session, December 19th, 2023 regular session, January 2nd, 2024 work session, and January 2nd, 2024 regular session. A resolution authorizing a contract with Paul Brothers, Inc. for the Scott, Bowman Bray, and Balfour Park projects. And a resolution authorizing a public improvement contract with 2KG contractors to provide construction services for the public safety building seismic retrofit project. I will note that I want to pull the first item, the December 12th special session minutes, off of the consent agenda for discussion because there's an amended version. Does any member of council wish to remove anything else from the consent agenda? Okay, seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve consent agenda as revised.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as revised, meaning minus item A1. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. Okay, and then on, at your place on the December 12th minutes, after consultation with various folks, we decided to spell out, as you will recall, that was the meeting where we discussed the meeting that had been held with the governor. And I really wanted to lay out what was discussed at that meeting, since it was not a noticed public meeting. So this got added to from the version that was in your packets. And if nobody has any problems with that, then I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the December 12th special session.
I move to approve the minutes of the December 12th, 2023 special session.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the December 12th, 2023 special session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. Passes unanimously. Thank you. All right. Summer events update. Emma Sager, Dan Harris, and assistant.
I'll hold the assistant.
I appreciate that, Counselor, but I think he would not.
We do need an interim.
Oh, and what do you think? You good to call it public service? Maybe not.
Good evening, Mayor, Council President, and Councilors. Thanks so much for having us back to continue this conversation about events and direction you'd like to give us as we prepare our events budget for the next biennium. I do want to mention, I just handed out for you and provided to Scott to put in the record the final data report from the Engage Milwaukie survey that we're going to be talking about tonight. The graphs and the charts that you see in our presentation come from that report, so they're the most up to date. But because the staff report had to be submitted by Friday, it was a few days delayed since we kept the survey open over the weekend. So we'll point out where any data points have changed. You just have to push it.
Thank you. I would add to that there are no significant changes in the trends of the data. It's the most recent numbers.
Okay, so just a quick grounding for folks who weren't able to tune in to that January 16th discussion. Dan and I came to you that evening to ask council for directions as we are putting together our budget for the next biennium. We, as I think we all know, we're in a hold the line budget situation where we're not able to increase funds while the cost of event production and hosting is going up. And so we're just being forced to make some tough decisions as we consider what we want to put forward, how we respond to some community feedback we've received. And we just wanted to get your direction now because while the budget's not due till June, we have to start getting going on planning for summer events for 2024. What we brought to you last time was two proposals that we were weighing up. One is to continue with the current slate of signature events. We are confident that we could deliver the same kind of calendar of annual and biannual events, including a biannual Carefree Sunday over the next biennium. But we couldn't do more, and we have received some asks or conversation with the community about other things they'd like to see. So the other alternative we put in front of you is to replace Carefree Sunday with a summer festival and increased funding for community-led multicultural events. We really appreciated the discussion we had last time. You raised really great points, and we really appreciated the request to go do more public outreach and tried to get on that right away. So what we did is put together an Engage Milwaukie survey and got that launched by January 22nd. It was open through yesterday, through Monday, February 5th. We advertised that through the weekly NDA email, the city webpage, social media, and then we mentioned it at the Arts Committee and Equity Steering Committee meetings that were held during that 2-week time frame. I also just want to give a shout out to my friends from Celebrate Milwaukie who are here tonight. They reached out right after that survey launched and said, hey, you know, funnily enough, we had our retreat this last weekend where we were also talking about summer festivals, namely the Summer Festival of Milwaukie Days. I wasn't aware until that email that CMI kind of owns the Milwaukie Days moniker. I really appreciated them reaching out, and we met with Mark Steen and Tamara Hawkins from Celebrate Milwaukie on February 2nd to just discuss what their thoughts are around this and potentials for partnership, and we'll circle back to that a little bit later. I'm going to hand it over to Dan and the wonderful Owen to walk us through some of the results of our Engage survey.
Thanks, Emma. Owen, you got this slide? He does not, in fact. All right, so first I'd like to talk about some of the key demographic data. In this survey, we received 205 total responses, and those are from registered, those are from registered participants on Engage Milwaukie. They have, here you are. They were primarily identified as, you're so welcome, primarily identified as women, although we did have a significant number of men respond as well. Within that, there were also a small number of people identifying as non-binary, trans of various identities, and other genders declining to state. It was a primarily white response group in terms of race and ethnicity. That's that large blue line there on the center. What I would say, though, is that we did have a pretty significantly spread response from the various neighborhoods in the city and some surrounding jurisdictions as well. So the one place where we see underrepresented really is Island Station, and there are any number of reasons for that. I would prefer not to speculate, but I will say we only received 6 responses from Island Station.
And I'll just note that in total, we received 205 responses. So when we're talking about percentages, that's out of a sample size of 205.
All right, so in the survey responses, we found that roughly an even number of respondents had and had not attended Carefree Sunday in the past. 92 had, 93 had not. The remainder were either unsure or provided another answer, and those other answers were variously, I was working the event, or essentially I did attend the event, but I was driving through. Respondents who did not attend, and this is the large graph on the right, indicated, again, roughly in thirds, that the reason for not attending was that they had a lack of interest, a lack of knowledge, or as or other, which was primarily they were out of town on the days that that Carefree Sunday was held previously. Most of the respondents most of the respondents who had attended indicated that they appreciated the open streets aspect of Carefree Sunday, which is good, it being an open streets event. In terms of findings, we asked the respondents to tell us what else the city should be considering as it prepared for its summer events, and whether those were just what things we should be keeping in mind. This was a little bit all over the map, although there were some common themes, as indicated here: preference for more frequent, smaller events over one large event every 2 years, desire for more multicultural events, and in that specifically Juneteenth, being in the new year, Pride, although Pride's not listed there, were called out. Other events that were mentioned specifically are listed there, including a request for additional support for the sustainability fair, a lot of interest there. First Friday, being in the new year, and Porch Fest. People wanted to see events downtown. People wanted to see events on the east side of 224. They wanted to see events on the west side of 224. Respondents were interested in events all over the city. Active transportation was another common theme that came through, and whether that was just promoting bicycling or use of other active transport to the events, or whether that was specifically we should do more active transportation themed events. And also all ages and basically family events, make sure that it's accessible for everyone. There was some sort of general feedback around improving the audio quality, giving more tents at summer events, which absolutely just good feedback all around. This really was the big takeaway for us when we asked about stay the course, continue putting on a biennial Carefree Sunday event, or replace Carefree Sunday with a reimagined. Here we said Milwaukie Days, due respect to celebrate Milwaukie Incorporated. This would not any longer be referred to as Milwaukie Days, but a summer festival. And increased funding for multicultural and neighborhood events. We saw a pretty significant disparity here. So 154 respondents indicated that they would like a change of course. 19 respondents indicated that they would like for us to keep going as we are with Carefree Sunday every other year. And 28 respondents indicated that they had no preference either way. We did also ask if the summer festival were to be held, what would people like to see prioritized there? The biggest of those was music and live entertainment, along with food vendors and activities in Milwaukie Bay Park. You can see there were some others. I was a little bit disappointed that the Parasol Parade didn't get more traction than it did, coming in at number 7 of 9, but so it goes.
All right, I think I take over from here, Dan. So this slide we shared with you on a couple weeks ago, but we wanted to bring it back just to say a couple of the things that we've thought through and weighed up as we're analyzing which path to go down. So on the opportunity side, what we're excited about with this combination of a summer festival and increased funding for multicultural events is, one, we could really harness a lot of community energy. There's lots of potential partners. Again, I want to really thank Celebrate Milwaukie for reaching out. And as Dan said, we discussed that if we do move forward with the summer festival, we won't call it Milwaukie Days. I'll get to sort of one of the top things on the risks side in a second, but we think this is actually a chance to reimagine that. It would still be a summer festival activating the downtown core and waterfront, but we would leave the name behind, recognizing that wasn't a city event when it was put on. We, as I mentioned, I think this is a chance to reimagine that summer festival, embrace Milwaukee's diverse and evolving identity, kind of celebrate the present, past, and future. We think it can still be a great opportunity to demonstrate what can be done to activate park and street space. It can support our downtown business community and urban renewal. And then, we're focusing a lot on the summer festival, but I really don't want to shy away from the fact that the proposal here is that we would split the funding that we currently put towards Carefree Sunday, half to a summer festival and half to providing city financial support for community-led multicultural events. The ones that we already are supporting include Pride and Juneteenth. We want to scale up our support of that, but we've received a lot of other interest and, I wish the city could do this. And we think this would open the opportunity for being able to do that and being able to do that around the city. We do think there's strong fundraising potential. We talked a little bit last time about how we're using this ice cream bowl metaphor, that we want to make sure we're budgeting for the bowl and the ice cream, and then fundraising for the hot fudge and the sprinkles and the whipped cream, so that we know we can deliver what we're putting in our budget, and then can just only enhance it with fundraising. On the risk side, we want to be really, really straightforward about these. We are going to hear, especially if we had called this Milwaukie Days, that's not what it used to be. It doesn't have, this that I used to love or that I used to love. And I think that we've all fallen into a good place of thinking that then we shouldn't call it Milwaukie Days. This will be a new thing. We know that when we're hosting events downtown, really anywhere, but especially downtown, there are parking challenges, and it's a lot to close a significant number of streets. There's a lot happening in the summer. We've got our volunteer dinner, we've got Porch Fest, we've got an NCPRD concerts and movie nights. This is both sort of a challenge, but also I think an opportunity, and one that we're if we go this direction, excited to lean into. We also know it's February, and even though it doesn't feel like it outside, summer's around the corner, so it's a compressed planning schedule. We know that whatever we decide today, we're getting moving tomorrow, whether that's on Carefree or it's on this. And then potential construction conflicts downtown. We don't really foresee any. I've been talked to our engineering crews, but it's always a chance things are going to be happening downtown. And it is going to require significant staffing and volunteer corps. We really appreciated when talking to Celebrate Milwaukie, the offer that if we move this direction, they could maybe help with some of that networking support to connect with potential sources of volunteers. So again, this was the slide we put in front of you last time of sort of what direction would you like to give us? Continue the current program or move down this updated program proposal path? And the one thing I really want to say here is, and this is feedback we've received from some of you and feedback we've received from some of our equity steering committee members, is I wish this wasn't such a binary choice. I completely hear that and recognize that. I'll share that the reason we brought it forward as a binary choice was, one, because of budget crunch. And because of that, I've kind of got my arms around this now. I'm writing this budget. We've got to put on these events this summer, and we kind of need to pick and go so we can deliver things in 2024. Two, when we think about kind of splitting up the city's portion of what the city's going to put on into multiple smaller events, I love that idea as well, whether it's a lot of First Fridays or a lot of summer events. It's not, though, just about the money that we'd be putting into it. It's also the resources that involves in staff time. And when we had weighed it out, those pros and cons, we felt more confident that we could sustainably deliver that single summer event and then capacitate community members to put on other events. And that was the right compromise. We are welcome to talk about other alternatives, but I just wanted to explain the reasoning behind why there's 2 boxes up there and not 20. And then the final kind of consideration and notes I just want to reiterate again is we are going to pursue fundraising, but we're not trying to rely on that to pull off the events. And again, I really want to state that I don't want the takeaway from this to be that Emma doesn't like Carefree Sunday. I love it. I used to work at PBOT. I love Sunday Parkways. In fact, I was at PBOT last week lobbying them to bring a Sunday Parkways back to Milwaukie. And I think they are open to that. They're doing a lot of investment in lower southeast, and they were excited about, we could connect our greenways down and come up here. So I'm still passionate about promoting active transportation regardless what path we go down, and hope that we can, also have great open streets activities in the future too. And I wish I had a huge events budget, but that's another problem. So that's the end of our presentation. We're happy to answer any questions you have.
Have any questions for staff? I do also, okay.
I just reading some of the comments, I'm hearing a lot about a parade.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that may be incorporated in this as well, or is
Yeah.
that just like a separate?
It's really interesting. Dan mentioned it. So we put a parade on sort of our, here's some crazy ideas we have. What would you prioritize? And I was also a little sad. It was lower down on the list. But then in the comments, I think what a lot of people loved about Milwaukie Days was the parade downtown. We were playing with the parasol parade idea because we love the umbrella parade so much in the winter, and a parasol is sort of a summer version of that, and something that this community is really good at doing, that kind of informal, let's all gather together, let's march down the street, hang out, and then disperse. So I can't say today if it would yes or no be a parade. We're gonna have to kind of weigh that feedback up, but we're excited about a parade.
We are, and I would say too that one of the good things about the what Emma had described as the Promenade Parasol Parade is that it would be down along the Milwaukie waterfront, so that we would be moving through Milwaukie Bay Park, which one of the major problems anytime that we have a parade is traffic closures. And although the police department has been hugely supportive of that, and Milwaukie CERT has been, no sir, we won't be doing that, hugely supportive of that. The fact is that that's itself a pretty significant resource commitment for Umbrella Parade, for example. So if we could find a way to have a good parade, to have a well-attended parade, but just maybe just a little bit off of the streets, that would be probably a good option.
Thank you.
Did you have questions, Councilman?
Well, I'm interested to hear a little bit more about the conversation with Celebrate Milwaukie Inc. And, you had mentioned that they just did a planning retreat. And I guess I'm kind of curious, are there things that align, or are we so far off?
I would, if it's okay with you, I would invite them up here if you wanted to join the conversation, Mark.
You can sit over here and hit the button so your red light comes on and you can be heard.
Milwaukie. I missed the first part of what you said. We were having our own little.
I blame David.
That's good.
I'm curious about the conversation around your annual retreat, some of the history around Milwaukie Days, and I guess, where does Celebrate Milwaukie Inc. stand on events across Milwaukie? Do you want to partner with the city? Is it best to keep them separate? I just want to understand the context a little bit more.
Sure. We absolutely will be a partner with the city. The term Milwaukie Days, I think, has more to do with the connotation of how Milwaukie Days is spelled than our concern with an event with that name, or that kind of, it's something that we're going to put our name behind. And I expressed this to Dan and Emma the other day. I'm concerned that it's February and you want to put an event on in July, and we don't want it to be something that's not worthy of the city or not worthy of us. So we absolutely want to do something that we can have a lot of pride in, and a lot of, have it be a parade, and, we have all kinds of ideas. We have limited resources, and we're a volunteer group. Obviously the market is our big focus, but we would, again, we would be a partner in whatever. Our retreat, as it's called, is I wanted to go to Sun River, but we ended up at my office, so it's not much of a retreat. Most of our planning is around the market and what we're doing there, and another issue that's on the agenda later. So that's where we've spent most of our time.
That's really helpful, because I think no fault to Owen. We were, I think I had a different connotation of how the conversation had gone, and so I'm really helpful. That's really helpful. I'm really glad that you were able to clear that up. And I did notice that some of the comments that we received were really kind of questioning, like, the spelling or the intent behind the event. So yeah, that's helpful. So, thank you. The other question that I have really, Emma, kind of gets down to budget logistics, you know, and our budget goes across 2 fiscal years. We are now at the end of the 2nd fiscal year, gearing up for the planning in the next biennium, which would be, you know, tethering together 2 other fiscal years. So can you lay out for us in terms of the event funding that's available to finish out this biennium? What are we dealing with? And then what do we have, well, this part might be harder to forecast because we're not quite to that point in the budget, but generally kind of what are we looking at for the next biennium?
Absolutely. Having a calendar, a seasonal calendar that doesn't always match your budget calendar does make it fun to do these little gymnastics. But where we're sitting with our current budget is we have planned to support our colleagues in Public Works with Earth Day, which will happen in the spring, and then support with a very small stipend to Pride and Juneteenth in June. Those are things that we had built into the existing budget. We would, if we weren't having this conversation at all and we were just full steam ahead on Carefree, we would be starting the process of planning. We would be executing a contract to do the pieces for the Open Streets event. Some of that cost would be incurred in this fiscal, but the vast majority would hit in next fiscal, which we needed to, because we don't have really a Carefree budget for FY24. It would come back in FY25. So if we were to switch gears, everything would stay the same in terms of the Earth Day, the small stipends for Pride and Juneteenth for 24, and then starting on July 1, we would have the funding ready to pull off the summer festival and begin the increased grants or support for multicultural events. Kind of like the Carefree situation, there's going to be some costs incurred as we are planning for the summer festival, but we won't have to, sign a consultant contract. So it would be more of, getting various logistical agreements in place with tent providers and that kind of thing. And this guy knows a lot more about that than me.
Thank you, Emma. And so with that, really the thing to be aware of is that most of our events, the way that they are billed is afterward, is after the event. So we'll get invoiced, and we have, the way that we negotiate these agreements with providers, service providers of various kinds, is that we're invoiced after the fact. And so any expenses for Carefree Sunday, for a summer festival, those would all land in fiscal year 25. I'm sorry, I always get it mixed up. Fiscal year 25. So that would all be after June 30th.
So I want to understand what you're saying. Is generally, if you are supporting, is what you're saying, if we have consultant contracts that originate in this fiscal year, that the cost for those will land in the next fiscal year, because that's when the event will take place.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay,
and
then that's helpful.
Yeah, and historically, those consultant contracts end up being billed as a lump sum, or as largely a lump sum after services are rendered, rather than continuously throughout.
Something you said brings up the other point that I was going to make, and it has to do with the small contributions for community-led events. And I remember, being a part of a lot of grant conversations in our neighborhood association, where it's really difficult because some of the events that occur later in the fiscal year, they make the rounds through all of the NDAs. And by then, in some neighborhoods, the funding that's available for grants is depleted. Yep. And it's troublesome to me that some of the most vibrant events that we have in the community that are community-led and that should be sustained are limited to $500 from the city.
Yep.
So can you give me a better idea of how much more we would be able to contribute to those events should we switch gears and go with a smaller festival versus a free event?
And I can definitely talk to some numbers, and just to the point you made about the NDA funding piece, we work closely with Jason Wax, who's in a conversation with NDA leadership right now about changes to the NDA grant program. One of the pieces of feedback we've heard from NDA leadership is they enjoy being able to give grants out. That wasn't something a sweeping majority wanted to get rid of. But they did mention that it's not a perfect system, and particularly not a perfect system for applicants who don't have a lot of experience writing grants, or who are wanting to put on sort of a small multicultural festival for the first time, and then they're having to go, to all 7, and it takes a long time. And so from an equity perspective, seeing that as a gap. And that's where we were excited about maybe coming in to be able to help fill that gap, as was the Equity Steering Committee, who we'd want to work with to set up criteria and the structure of that piece of the program. What we are looking at from the budget side, and again, all of these are preliminary numbers, nothing's been put in front of you or budget committee or even Ann, but is the current budget of Carefree is around $43,000. That's every other year. So we would take that, we'd split it in half. We would put about 20,000 towards the summer festival. So that'd be 10 per summer. And then the other 10,000 would be open for the multicultural event support. To give you a sense of what we've been able to do for Pride and Juneteenth, I believe it's $500 each. And so we're going from basically $1,000 of multicultural event support to potentially 10 times that.
And if I may, Counselor, just to give everyone sort of a fact check on this, we're working right now on the construction kickoff event for the 3 parks construction projects that we have scheduled throughout this year. And I just today put in orders for a single ADA porta potty, ADA accessible porta potty, which was about $400, and then a pair of large tents of the kind that we see at thank you so much, Solstice. And that together was just shy of $2,000. So when we have community groups coming to us saying, the city has placed a value in diversity, equity, and inclusion, we have been encouraged to put on these events. Right now, the city is able to fund essentially a porta potty. And this proposal would allow us not to pay for the whole event, certainly, but to provide something a bit more substantial in that direction.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you. And there were other comments that were in the survey results, and I realized, let me also say that this is a good respondent size for our community, but it's not inclusive of all of the conversations that are happening across the community on this issue. So some of the comments were talking about other homegrown events that have become beloved across the whole city. And so what does the conversation look like around some of those events and our partnership?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've talked about it. Again, we've been a little bit, we didn't want to put the cart before the horse and get going down too far on a road where if we got direction to go another way, we couldn't fulfill. We have, thinking about the context of the NDA grant program and this potential city grant program, for lack of a better word, we've been thinking about how we kind of differentiate those, and that nexus of equity feels really important to me. So really thinking about what I heard from NDA leadership about the inequities of folks having to come seek that sponsorship, that'd be a gap we could fill that's very much aligned with the council goal. There are some of those beloved events that I think fall into that camp, fall into that celebrating diversity, equity, and inclusion, celebrating our diverse identity. Being in the new year might be an example of one. But there are other events that are beloved. Dan mentioned the Sustainability Fair got a lot of mentions in that. And we know that they've been very interested in city partnership. And again, I wish I had a really, really big events budget. I think this is a conversation we need to have about what would be the, how we would administer this. And that's a conversation I would like to have the Equity Steering Committee really lead. In February, on February 23rd, I think, is the next ESC meeting, and they're talking all about events. Dan's the main attraction there. So whether or not, you give us the direction to go that way or the other way, we want them to help us make our events program and our events calendar more centered around equity. Yeah.
Guess we're ready for discussion. Anybody want to lead off?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay.
Let me first say, I love Carefree Sunday. I really love it. And because I know what it is, and I've been there, and I've participated in it. And I'm sure that I would love the summer festival, but I really don't know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess it's just fear of the unknown, because I kind of know what we had, and I don't know what would develop from this proposal. I want to support it. I just, I'm kind of torn, because I love Carefree Sunday.
Well, I will say, I mean, I'm kind of the godmother of Carefree Sunday. I got it started with Peabot and Sunday Parkways and a few residents of town before. That is the one thing I take from this survey and this effort, is that that maybe it's time to let go of Carefree Sunday. But I don't think putting all our eggs in a single summer event is the way to go. I really don't. And even if it is the way to go, I don't think we've had a discussion of what that event should look like. And we saw some of the things that basically people wanted music and food vendors, and the things that staff had suggested, like goose race, which is infringing on the duck race that is already done. And the, Paris, those things didn't seem to resonate much with people. We had a resident years ago, when I was a new council member, come pitch a human-powered regatta event, which was, kayaking and paddleboarding events, and using Milwaukie Bay for human-powered stuff, using Milwaukie Bay Park conceivably for other human-powered on-land stuff. I mean, I would like to have a discussion of something like that. I just feel like we're rushing, and it was interesting that Mr. Steen from CMI said, July seems really soon, and they don't feel like there's time. I don't feel like there's time to do a big summer event. I'm not ready to sign on for a big summer event instead of some smaller events, but also I just don't think we haven't talked enough, we haven't thought enough about what we would want that event to look like. Like, you didn't include a parade, and the parade was a very popular part of the old Milwaukie Days. It's interesting to me because I think Milwaukie Days has been gone for something like 13 or 14 years. So a lot of the people in these surveys have never experienced one. I do want to avoid the perception that there's this groundswell of people calling for Milwaukie Days. You also left off the risk list, the climate risk. The heat event risk, that if you put all your eggs in one basket and that basket is a heat dome event, then, as happened with our last Carefree Sunday, that's a risk. I kind of think, I don't know, I have maybe a proposal for a interim thing to do, which is for this year. Let's beef up First Fridays. Let's do something at the first. We have a group. So the whole thing of, encouraging groups to do, trying to provide support and encouragement and capacity building for groups to do multicultural events, that also applies to our downtown businesses. They have stepped forward to try and bring back First Friday. And I feel like we should support an effort where people are making an effort. And so I'd say, for this year, let's add music, let's add some stuff to First Friday, and then have a more robust conversation about whether a one-off event or a, what we should do as a summer event. I just feel like we're kind of being pushed on this either or binary choice and with not much time to make a great decision.
Can I ask a question of you, Mayor?
Yeah.
So in your proposal, are you advocating to not do Carefree Sunday?
I'm advocating not to do Carefree.
Okay, all right.
I do like bringing back Milwaukie Days. Just with, from a lot of what we've been hearing is more events, right? So bringing back Milwaukie Days gives us that, over Carefree. And the fact that Carefree was becoming a biannual event, right? Every other year, I think that, sucks a lot of air out for that year in between. So I'm more on the side of replacing Carefree, or maybe incorporating some elements of Carefree into what we do. As far as between now and July, I do share the mayor's concerns with time, and with the potential of weather. But I would hate to have nothing going on, right? Like, I know we have First Fridays, and I'm for beefing that up, but I would like to have something else. I mean, maybe this year we bring back one event that we probably won't, right? Like maybe 4th of July parade or something like that, or, some people have been asking for a parade, so let's give them one. Maybe that's what we do in lieu of while we beef up First Friday, and just do something of that nature, and then kick off Milwaukie Days starting next year. Unless that feels like they can get it done. I mean, I remember last meeting, they said they were you guys were pretty confident in being able to put it together, but how's that? What's the gauge on that now? Has that changed, or?
We're still confident, but I completely hear all of you. It is a risk. It was the second risk on our risk list. And I hear, Council President Massey, and it feels like it's a known quantity versus a very fuzzy entity. I'll share that, again, one of the reasons I brought the very binary decision is I love Carefree, and I felt like I didn't want to come to you and say, let's take this away and just give me a lot more money. I felt like we needed to replace it with something else that is equally, or not equally, but that is significant and kind of a milestone moment. I've been here 7 months now, and I had heard a lot about it since I got here 7 months ago. So I thought, okay, this might be there might be a there. That said, I really, really also hear this other option of, maybe we do something really small, but still kind of a milestone in the summer. We do some increased support for First Friday, and we see where we go next year. I apologize if also this felt like a rushed conversation. It really was just so I could make that budget informed by, where you'd like to see us be heading. But I appreciate all the feedback. And sorry, Councilor Kosarabadi, it would be doable. We can do it. My team's really excited about it, but we can do a lot of different things up to that scale of the big day-and-a-half event. Dan, I think, had to step out, but he had mentioned to me that July 13th is NCPRD's concert in the park. That could be something we build around. We could do a parasol parade that leads to the concert.
So yeah, and, maybe we do something like that. Where we use the budget this year to expand what's already on the schedule. And I don't want to leave summer bare.
Sure.
Right, but again, we have the concerts, right? We have those. I mean, there could be other things. We could add something to movies in the park. But yeah, maybe this year, because I also don't want to put on the first, Milwaukie Day celebration and it not be up to par with what the people are expecting, right? So I think slower approach in terms of making sure we get it right, and it's got as many components of what people want out of it would be smarter, and then just, again, reinforcing the First Fridays and try to use that to put some sort of smaller event and spread it out throughout the year, I guess would probably be my recommendation.
All right, well, this is the point where I propose annual budgeting, right? There are pros and cons around biennial budgeting, and I think this is definitely one of those situations where we're seeing, you know, there's definitely less time to forecast your planning, more inconsistencies or more uncertainties. You might end up having more costs in one fiscal year. Or like we did with Carefree this year, realize that the, you know, fundraising is not feasible. And then we have to forego an entire year without one of those like centerpiece, events. And that's really frustrating. So, you know, I'm trying to think about, you know, really what's feasible given the capacity that we have, and also kind of taking advantage of that, harnessing that mobility that we see in the homegrown, like community organized events that really do have a huge volunteer base, a lot of awareness. And I'm thinking like, you know, the concerts that we've done in Llewellyn. What time is it? You know, the costs have gone up exponentially for those events. And that's really tough because Dan mentioned being able to pay for a porta potty. Well, this year, North Clackamas Parks and Rec actually said, hey, we're not going to provide the porta potty, you have to provide it. And so then that cut in, well, not this, the last year I was involved, that cut into the budget and the planning and the amount that we're able to then provide as an asset for the community. It also is really hard for the NDAs who put on big events like that, and Ardenwold and Llewellyn are not the only ones, to have a fit, like a fixed amount of budget that they're planning for an event like that. And then to turn away folks that are coming for grant applications because there's not funding for other events. So, so I think, you know, where I'm landing with this is, you know, assuming that we have, you know, roughly 20 per fiscal year, I think that in fiscal year 25, we should forego a large centerpiece event, focus in on a really quality events calendar that recognizes the events that we partner with, that nonprofits put on, that the business community puts on, even adjacent jurisdictions like North Clackamas Parks and Rec, and really have this kind of comprehensive offering that we can start to just share with community members. And maybe there are some guided bike rides, you know, that go to those events from certain neighborhood hubs. I think that's something that's informal like that gives us the ability to avoid one of the, you know, like Mary, you were saying that you put all those eggs in the basket and then it turns out to be 105 degrees or thunderstorm, you know, and then you have a soggy basket or scrambled eggs. So, so I think, you know, that's kind of where I'm landing, where, you know, we really kind of focus in on what our partnerships look like, boost what we have, be able to put that funding into strategic investments. And, you know, Council President Massey, I'm with you that I really, really enjoy Carefree Sundays. My family really enjoys it. We love decorating the bikes and going around. But if we can successfully lobby Portland to, you know, have a route that dips into Milwaukie and or have some routes where we're integrating bike-friendly options to get to events, then maybe we can do something like that on more of our own kind of homegrown budget. And then lastly, I think for fiscal year 26, that gives us more planning time and also more fundraising time so that we're able to have a better picture of what we need to sustain events. Because, you know, duct tape and bubble gum the costs are going up for those things. You would be surprised. I'd really like to see some type of very small common survey that we can have across all of the events so that we can really get an idea from folks. I mean, I love the work that, and thank you, Emma. I know that this was a big lift to get it out on Engage Milwaukie. And again, you know, the response shows me that in a short period of time, there are a lot of people who are interested in this topic. But I think that if we had something at all the concerts, you know, and maybe it's just something that we, you know, hand off to the organizers for that event, or we have like a traveling iPad kiosk or something along those lines where we're able to say, you know, like happy face, sad face, meh face. I think that gives us a better idea of what we're looking for in fiscal year 26. That's all I have.
You heard a lot.
Would you like me to summarize where I think I heard this direction?
Sure.
And I just want to say, thank you all so much. I recognize the 15 minutes we threw on the agenda 2 weeks ago was kind of ridiculous. You've been very gracious. You've been really helpful. Yes, we threw it together fast, but that was at your urging and it was absolutely the right call. I think this is a super helpful discussion and I appreciate your patience with my kind of A or B. And I think where we're landing is a very good C. So I think what I'm hearing from everyone is you're comfortable with us removing the budget for Carefree Sunday from our next biennial proposed budget, reallocating that money to both support community-led multicultural events and also beef up city direct support and augmentation of other events. We'll look at if we could do kind of like little things sprinkled through. No big signature milestone summer festival in fiscal year 25, but keep talking to our cool partners over there about fiscal year 26. I think they're still there. They're still there.
I'm not sure. I thought we were talking about 25 or this year.
This year being the start of fiscal year 25. This is where the budget. So this summer.
So you're talking about
next summer.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah.
Just 'cause some
We have a
people
year
might
and 5 months to plan, not 5 months to plan.
Right.
Yes.
Quick question though, would we be able to, talking about community-led events, could we allocate some of these funds to the NDAs and to the arts committee?
So we already do, the city allocates funding to the NDAs that then they choose how to utilize.
I'm saying if we're not gonna do one summer event, like, could some of the sprinkling be into the arts committee budget and NDA since they do put on their own stuff as well?
I think there's lots of things we can consider. I'd like to talk to the equity steering committee about how they think we should set this up. I think it would pair it where we're not proposing to change anything about the current funding of the NDAs now, so they still have the ability to provide their own grants. But you know, the Bing in the New Year example, if we set up a program where folks could apply to the city for funding for those multicultural events, that might be a great candidate.
Yeah, because like maybe this year, since the city's not putting anything big on, maybe we say, hey, here's a one-time increase in budget so NDAs and our committee can put on their own thing for summer, whatever they feel like doing. But,
yeah, I do feel like the just the clarity you've given tonight opens a lot of doors because we have now that budget to consider for this year.
Thank you for clarifying.
I hate fiscal years. I hate them.
Council President Massey?
You call this clarity? I don't either. I will tell you that this direction is sort of go forth and do good deeds. And I'm willing to live with that, but I want to temper expectations from the council here that, you know, the city staff has got to go out and get this going without much oversight from us at this point, because they just got a few months to get it done. So are you willing to live with that for this year?
That's what we're saying. We're not
May I-
not to do this year.
Can I get a point of clarification here? I'm not proposing that there be a big event this summer.
I agree.
So it feels like we have consensus around no big summer event this summer. Maybe next summer, but we don't know yet, right? We're gonna have to think about that a little bit. For this summer, my proposal is that the half of the events budget, which is, I say half because we're budgeting for the biennium, so this would be for the first year, starting, July 1st, that go to supplement events that happen across Milwaukee.
I understand that completely. What I'm saying is that we are telling the city staff to go and do this, and I think that requires a level of effort for them to define what that support is to those various entities and build programs for that, and I don't have a lot of time to do it. And so all I'm saying is, we can do that. I'm willing to do that, okay? But I'm just saying that we can't micromanage this, in the coming months.
May I ask a follow-up question then, Emma? What was going to be the process for supplementing events with the other portion of this fiscal year's budget? Or this summer's coming budget. So let's say that we did move forward with either Carefree or some type of festival. And then the other portion of the events was to supplement other multicultural events across the community. What was the process for that?
My plan was to embark on a conversation with the Equity Steering Committee, set up the criteria for how that program runs, launch it early in the next fiscal year, keep you updated, but I do, to the council president's point, I think this was I was going to sort of take the direction here of whether I'm allocating that 43,000 to one thing or having a little more freedom to allocate it and taking the feedback and direction you give me tonight to run that forward and keep you updated. If there's specific things you'd like to see from us, please let me know.
So I guess I can live with that. Is that good?
Yeah, I guess, if you're saying, yeah, they're gonna, do this or that and band or whatever they decide to do at, to help beef up First Fridays, yeah, I don't need to be involved in that level of detail. We're gonna spend $5,000 over 3 First Fridays and do X, I trust the staff to do that. I don't think we need to micromanage every bit of that.
I just wanted to make sure that those expectations were kind of understood about the level of oversight from the city council.
Okay. Other questions? Other comments? Okay. I think you read the room pretty good, Emma.
Great.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you're not sick of me, or you're not done with
Oh,
me. You're getting sick of me because
you've
I'm
got
on the next
item.
one. Too.
Okay, great. Well, this one should be easy, I would think. We've talked about it enough. So we're having a public hearing. The public hearing on the proposed business registration code amendments is called to order. The purpose of this hearing is to hear the staff report, take public comments, deliberate, and consider adopting changes to the business registration code. Does any member of council wish to announce an actual or potential conflict of interest? Seeing none, I will turn it over to Assistant City Manager Emma Sager for the staff report.
Great. Well, hello.
And by the
again.
way, before Emma starts, we do have some members of the public in the room, so if you are intending to testify on this, please fill out a yellow comment card. Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, hello again, Mayor, Council President, and councilors. I switched the color of the PowerPoint, so it keeps you on your toes. As the mayor said, we brought this topic to you quite a few times over the last several months, and tonight we're bringing to you an ordinance that would put into place some changes that we have worked on with several community stakeholders. So again, just to provide you a little bit of background on this topic, it first arose in May, just before I was hired, when we received the temporary event permit application for First Friday Milwaukie. A question was raised in that application process of whether vendors at that event need to register for a business license. That led to some digging into code, and the code says no person shall maintain, operate, engage in, or conduct or carry on business within the city without having first paid the business tax as established by this chapter. After considering that with our city attorney, we did conclude that that would not exempt vendors as currently written. So that was the predicament we were in back in May. Couple other kind of contextual pieces just to remind you of. Our code says in the business license chapter that business taxes imposed by this chapter are for revenue purposes only. A key point on that is to date, we have not been collecting revenue from vendors at permitted events because we weren't really making this enforcement. And so there really isn't a revenue impact in terms of things that we have been collecting and would stop. There is some foregone revenue loss if we take this on, but we weren't realizing that anyway. The other thing that's come up through conversations about this is while the code talks about that revenue purpose, in practice, the city also has an important purpose behind business registration, which is to understand who is conducting business within the city of Milwaukie. That's information that most cities have something in their code that requires that, and they benefit from that. And particularly, it's important here when we want to be proactive about emergency communication. So say there was a boil water notice and we wanted to urgently let people who were at a city permitted event know, we'd like to have that list and the ability to do that quite quickly. So back in the summer of last year, city manager agreed to waive all the registration fees for First Friday in the Milwaukie Farmers Market as those applications were in the queue, had been approved historically, and we knew this was going to be a longer conversation. We did ask that the vendors still register with the city in 2024 while the process was reviewed, and we appreciate their help in doing that. We first brought this to you back in July, and you directed us to convene a meeting with the potentially impacted stakeholders to discuss the path forward, which we did. We did a few things. We reached out to 12 cities to understand kind of the landscape, because we can't be the only ones wrestling with this issue. And what we really found was code requirements vary. Some codes are written to have a lot of carve-outs, some aren't. But I think the real theme was that enforcement is very rare. Even the cities that do have a code like ours that would apply this to vendors aren't showing up with code enforcement at their events. We then met with representatives of First Friday Milwaukie, Celebrate Milwaukie Inc., who puts on the Farmers Market, and the North Clackamas Chamber of Commerce back in November. We really appreciated their time and conversation there. And at that meeting, we really all came to the agreement that the removing barriers to putting on these great community events is in the interest of the city. They enrich our town, they bring people here, they contribute to the economy. They're really wonderful mainstays of what make Milwaukie, Milwaukie. And imposing a business tax on their vendors would have a significant impact. So we agreed to a couple next steps. We all felt that it was appropriate to amend the code to exempt vendors operating at an event authorized by either a city-issued temporary event permit or a neighborhood block party permit. So this would then avoid the need, if First Friday submits an application, we are not going to say they have to go and pay a business tax. But to that practical benefit of having the list of who is conducting business in the city, we have requested that we update the temporary event permit application, the block party permit application, to require applicants to tell us if they're going to have vendors, and if they will, provide a list of those vendors with contact information to the city. And the language in the application says, 24 hours in advance or at a schedule determined with the applicant. What happens when we get these applications in is we often have a conversation with the applicant, then we issue a permit letter. That permit letter could spell out the schedule upon which we will receive that contact information. So we feel pretty good about where this landed. It did take a while, but we're still ahead of event season. I think the farmers market wants to get their application in this week, but we appreciate your direction. We appreciate the engagement of our partners and are happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? Not seeing any. Oh, let me get my script. Have we received any additional correspondence on the topic?
We have not received any correspondence.
Okay. If you're done, I'm going to ask if anyone wishes to comment on the proposed changes. Nope, I'm seeing heads shake. Okay. So I won't read this script about taking public testimony since no one, oh, do you have anybody online?
No, I was just going to say for the record, we do have somebody on Zoom, but their hand's not raised.
Okay. Okay, great. So since no one in the room and no one on Zoom has indicated an intent to testify, I'm going to bypass the script about testimony. Does staff have any response to the testimony? Since there was no testimony, staff must not have any response. Does council have any questions for staff? Second chance?
No questions. I just want to say thank you to City Manager Ober for doing that last year, for waiving those fees. And
I think technically I waived them for 6 years.
for the past 6
But
years,
I
thank you.
think we did run it. I mean, it just made us realize that there was a process that we needed to change. And I appreciate everyone's good faith in going through that process with us.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, it could have been a different outcome, right?
Yeah.
So I appreciate that very much, and for
Absolutely.
staff putting this together. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions, I will entertain a motion to close the public comment part of the hearing.
I move to close the public comment part of the business registration code changes hearing.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public comment part of the business registration changes hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. None heard. The public comment part of the hearing is closed. Is there any council discussion? Is council ready to vote? Okay, I'll entertain a motion. Here. There
It's
you
a
go.
long one. I move for the first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending municipal code 5.08.110 exclusions to exempt vendors at city permitted events and block parties from needing to obtain a business license.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded for the first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending municipal code 5.08.110 exclusions to exempt vendors at city permitted events and block parties from needing to obtain a business license. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. None heard. It passes unanimously. Ms. Ober, would you please read the ordinance 2 times by title only?
Is it 2 times? Okay. Sometimes I don't have to. Sometimes it's only once. Okay. An ordinance of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, amending municipal code 5.08.110 exclusions to exempt vendors at city permitted events and block parties from needing to obtain a business license. And again, an ordinance of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, amending municipal code 5.08.110 exclusions to exempt vendors at city permitted events and block parties from needing to obtain a business license.
And Mr. Stoffer, would you please poll the council?
Councilor Coster-Abadi? Aye. Council President Massey? Aye. Councilor Stavendrod?
Aye.
Mayor Beatty?
Aye.
Motion carried 4-0, ordinance 2239.
Well done.
Thank you. Thank you, Emma. Thank you, CMI folks. All right, now we turn to the Scott Stoffer portion of the evening. And the first, I'm excited to hear about this, actually. I've been wondering where this stands. The first fish herons agreement with the Grand Ronde Tropical.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Beatty and council. Just a quick first item here, to just let you know that just yesterday we got some really good news about where we are in this process. And for a bit of a primer for those who were not on council or paying attention at the time, back in the fall of 2021, the Confederated Tribes, the Grand Ronde, approached the city and the greater community with a proposal to place sculptures of first fish herons. So sculptures of herons that welcome the return of the salmon run between March and May of every year. You may remember there were a couple of community events, including held by council, and there was just unanimous outpouring support for the idea from this council, from the council, from the community, They went to one of our arts committee, and North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District also had a meeting with members of their board present, and it was unanimous, let's do this. In the intervening 2 years, staff has taken quite a bit of time to coordinate and communicate with the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde, and a draft agreement was written. We proposed it to the tribe. The tribe took some time to look it over with their legal counsel and whatnot, and they returned it to us. And it's looking like it's really favorable. It's a sort of a unique agreement that we'll get into perhaps soon when there's an agreement that I can present to you. But just really good news that the tribe continues to be committed to essentially funding the recruitment, the hiring of artists, the installation of the artists. The tribe worked with North Clackamas Parks to talk about where the pedestals of these sculptures would go on in Milwaukie Bay Park. It's all pretty dialed in, and we're really, really close. Working with a sovereign nation, which I'm guessing isn't the first time the city has worked with a different nation, but perhaps one of the first. And so it's been a really interesting process, slow and steady, I would say. But I appreciate Justin and working through that with Kelly Tucker in our finance department too. It's been an interesting contract agreement to hammer out. So just a quick note to say it's still in the works, and hopefully very, very soon, hopefully in the next couple of months, I'll have a draft agreement to present to you.
And I just wanted to let people know NCPRD has seen this agreement, and they had a minor change that we were able to make. So once we get this back from the tribes, we actually should be in pretty good stead to be able to present to you and approve.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the placement and everything will be okay if Milwaukie Bay Park ever gets built?
We separated this largely from that design because we needed to. We didn't want to slow this down as an opportunity for the city to have this relationship and this artwork. So that's why showing it to NCPRD has been important over time. But at this point, yes, we feel comfortable installing this and then working around it at a future construction.
The tribe's point person on this project worked very intensely with 2 Ink Studios that NCPRD had contracted with the design when that was hot and heavy a couple of years ago, and the placement of these plinths, which are going to look largely like basalt rock, they're very much designed to blend into the naturescape of the parks because of the 9 months a year that they won't be actively with a sculpture on it. They work very intensely. So as of the current design concept of Phase 3 of Milwaukie Bay Park, yes, they'll fit in seamlessly.
Awesome.
So very excited about that. So more to come. Can't guarantee your timeline, but based on what I've heard this week, I would hope in the next couple months.
Great.
So then that's all for that one.
Yeah, next item, Clackamas Cities Association dinner. We heard earlier that the idea of doing it at the
23-hour stabilization center.
Yeah, is not going to be workable.
Next year it might be though. I mean, I think it's still something worth keeping on the future opportunity list.
Really a quick reminder, council doesn't necessarily need it, but for the good of the order and the public, the Clackamas Cities Association dinner is a somewhat monthly dinner of elected officials hosted by each of the 12 cities in the county. They feature various local topics, and it's an opportunity for city councils, the board of county commissioners, and often metro representatives and state legislators to convene to meet, network. Milwaukie is scheduled to host next time on June 13th, and I'll just note that you'll see in your email inbox, we received the invitation from Estacada today. So if you're interested in RSVPing for that, please let me know. So the 2 questions we really have on this front, which the mayor alluded to, where should we hold this dinner and what do we want to present about? The last time we talked a few weeks ago, it was the 23-hour stabilization center, but that seems to be off the table this year. In the past, we've hosted this at Bob's Red Mill, and I have not reached out to them in this young in the year, but they have in the last 12 months informed us that they're back on the market as an event space. So Bob's Red Mill, they were off for a while. But as of, I think last summer, I happened to run into one of their managers, and they're very much interested in these things again. So Bob's Red Mill, we've hosted it in the Sonic Lodge. We haven't thought out all the logistics, but we do have a brand new city hall that could have some things worked out in it. It'd be a pretty cost-effective one in terms of renting a space. But so I don't know if we want to take them together or one at a time, but the first big question is where do we want to hold this event?
What's, I mean, comparative costs from the Masonic Lodge and Bob's Red Mill?
Bob's pretty nice. Bob's was more expensive. It's been a few years since we hosted. I think Masonic was in the 400 to 500 range, and I think Bob's is roughly 600 to 800. So if not
On
close to
top of
1,000.
food, that's what they charge just for the space?
Correct. I should have had that number for you. I'm sorry, Counselor,
No,
but
you're fine.
it is a significant part of it. The overall budget is about $3,000 for this, and we do make up some of it because we charge attendees. And there is money in the current fiscal year budget for this. So we could swing renting either Bob's or the Masonic Lodge.
Bob's,
Sorry, Masonic Temple also did go up in price, in the last year. We just haven't used it recently, so we would have to get you the new pricing as well.
when we did them at Bob's, I mean, they were well attended. We were at that time doing like legislative, we did them at in January at the start of the legislative session. So they were sort of like legislative Q&As with a handful of legislators, which I guess is what Canby did last month. But it was crowded. I mean, they do it in they have food downstairs, maybe, I don't even remember, but they seat you in that upstairs part at Bob's. And it was crowded and it was hard to hear sometimes. So I kind of like the idea of using City Hall.
We can totally do it here. I mean, I think we need to look at what the count is. This room, we can move tables around and see if maybe this is a space. We also can try and use the community room downstairs.
Use both for different things.
So do you want us to do a little bit of a gut check with the attendee counts and then see what it would look like? Okay.
Because, I mean, this room isn't much smaller than the Masonic. I mean, we don't have a stage in there, but seating wise, right? Wasn't it similar space? Spacing?
It's a little
It's a bit bigger.
Smaller, but it's.
I honestly think that we built this building in hopes that we could show it off, in hopes that we could hold something like this. If we're talking about, if we're talking about a 35 or 45 person dinner, this is manageable. There were times that we went up to 75, and that would be really tight in this space. So we'll do a little bit of a gut check with other recorders. And if it's in that smaller number, I think it would be a great way for us to show off the new building, and maybe we can still do some of the houseless support topic and have Glenn and others come in and maybe see if Vahid or Adam could come talk to the group about the work we're trying to do. And then the next year we could show off the space.
I have heard, as our council members have attended other CCA dinners, I think we're having the post-pandemic CCA averages 40 to 50 people, which is down from the highs before of like 60 to 70. But 40 to 50 is what I would.
Well, and we can spill out into there, right?
Well, the food can be up there. Like, I think there's a way to make it happen. It doesn't have to be a seated dinner either, right? So there's some, Scott and I'll play with the design a little bit and see what we have in terms of tables that we can move around. And I think it'd be fun to see what we can do.
Yeah.
And they can do a tour, right? A walking tour of City Hall.
Yeah, we can show people City Hall and we can have a discussion up here near the dais about a given topic. And we can figure this out.
And there's general support for keeping houseless services, maybe inviting Glenn or Vahid to as one of the topics along with City Hall.
Yeah.
Did people have other ideas? Oh, Councilor Stavanger had brought up displacement.
Well, I think it could be blended in, but what I was going to say is that many of the cities who participate will have heard back about their city-led grants, their proposals from the county. So maybe some roundtable discussion about what they're doing as well would be helpful.
Yeah, that would be great.
And obviously, the stabilization center. We can talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
City Hall and houseless support, roundtable discussions, and some sort of a tour of the building. Kind of what we'll flesh out.
Yeah, I think that sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, and we can even have people who want to come a little early for the tour if they want to come see the building and meander around.
Yeah, maybe not make it part of the.
Part of the no host bar situation.
Yeah.
great. I think unless council has other thoughts on that, I think that's good to run for us.
All right. Wow. That was easy. That was easier than I expected. Okay, council dinner discussion.
Yes, and my name's on it. I know Ann is on there as well, but I might, not to put you on the spot, Mayor, but you put out a suggestion that maybe that might be a good starting point for council dinners.
Okay, so I brought this up, you know, it was something council did for many years, having dinner together having dinner brought in between the work session and the regular session. It fell apart some years ago because of too many dietary restraints on the council at the time. But I thought it might be worth trying again to see if we could do it, because I do feel like it's, you know, it's a little bit of team building. It's a little bit of time to decompress between the work session and the regular session, et cetera. But I don't want it to be really burdensome on staff. So I threw out a proposal of pizza and salad on the first Tuesday of the month, and sort of a Mexican taco bar kind of a setup on the third. And that way, I was trying to think of things that didn't have to be like I ordered X meal, and could be flexible to allow the staff that were here for presentations to join us if they wanted to, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of how I came to those ideas. If we could start, you know, with a couple of months and see and mix other things in, if people get tired of Mexican or whatever, so that was my attempt. But maybe staff have a different idea.
I don't think we have a different idea. I just want to put sort of the guardrails that I've said before generally out there. So I'd like for the restaurants to be Main Street centric. It gets really hard for us to have staff driving to different parts of town or out of town in order to pick up the food. It is going to be probably picked up by Nicole, since Scott will be in meeting with us. So she leaves at 5. That means she would be picking up around 4:45 and putting it out for 5 o'clock. So just for those of you who haven't had the joy of somewhat cold burritos, which we did a lot of, I just want to make sure people know, like, it'll be sitting up for a little bit. But otherwise, I don't think there's anything else. I like the idea of not having one-off specific meals as well. That's great.
Having standing orders and having a monthly schedule. First meeting is this, second, third week is this. Nicole is the one person who's on Zoom right now, so thank you, Nicole, for what you'll be doing in the future if the council goes this direction. But we could totally dial it in and provide that. The good news, we are in a different space where if there's more convenience in placing it in the kitchen here on the 3rd floor, maybe there's a microwave. So the amenities, the facilities in this building are a little more accessible to council than they might have been in the other building. But we're happy to provide council whatever you'd like us to do.
Thoughts?
I just don't need work.
I think we can meet that.
Yeah, I don't need work either.
Yeah, the Main Street thing, I think is, because you got Vita, right, you got, yeah, I mean, you got a beer store, you got Hawaiian, right? You got a lot of options just right here.
We have Pietros right down the street for the pizza. Like, there's
Yeah, Pietros.
absolutely options that are close by. We did redo the food policy, as I think some of you remember. As long as we're within the per diem rates, we're fine. So, and we should be with what we're talking about.
I'm going to end this truck.
First Jordan.
I like team building. I'm not a huge fan of public money being used for council food. But I can talk with you offline about that, or bring my own or something along those lines. But I really like the idea of us having some time to bond together.
Well, I guess, we could do that, bring our own meals and do that. I mean, they're not mutually exclusive, but it hasn't been the way things have played out.
No, I understand. And I appreciate that the food policy was reviewed and we're not in a violation. I just
I would just rather spend that money elsewhere.
And I think, you know, the other option, if you all want to do this, is we can also lessen the number of times, we can do it once a month.
And so that there's that opportunity. Thank you. Sorry, we have too many people with the buttons on tonight, so I keep turning mine off so others can speak. So, you know, we're open to how this works.
Well, maybe we should, maybe, is that what we should start with, is once a month?
You're talking about dinners, like,
Yeah.
Like probably in there, probably
So
most
we would
likely in
bring
there.
in probably pizza, once a month and see how it goes and see how y'all are feeling about it. Does that work?
Yeah.
Okay.
I would just ask that when you get an email from Nicole or I asking for what you'd like, let us know.
yeah. I do appreciate it. I know sometimes, like me, I'm terrible at bringing food, and sometimes I'm coming straight from work, so I don't have time to stop anywhere.
Sure.
So having that option does help a lot. Thank you.
Okay. Oh. So we're on to interim council review questions,
Indeed.
interview questions rather.
I have a PowerPoint with the questions, but I also, depending how it goes, I also have a Word document you can bring up. So yes, interim council member interview questions. Just as a reminder for council and the public watching, there is a vacant position on the city council. And there are a couple of processes underway to fill that vacancy. There's a special election coming on May 21st. And then, as called for in the charter, the council has the authority to appoint an interim member. And as the direction was given on January 16th, the council, an application form is made available online. And there was an application filing period that ended Monday, February 5th at 5 p.m. And as of February 5th at 5 p.m., we had 8 applications for the vacant position. And so now we're in the process of distributing those to council and getting a schedule set up for February 13th, following council's study session. That's about 6:15, a special session will be convened for council to interview those 8 applicants and then deliberate and make an appointment. And to do those interviews, council is in need of some questions. And so as discussed previously, there were a few set examples from previous vacancy interviews that were shared, and we did receive feedback from members of council. And so what I have for you are 6 questions that there seemed to be general consensus based on the information we got back. These 3 questions you see here were pretty much the information, the feedback. These work, these are good, keep these questions. So what do you think are the 3 most important concerns facing Milwaukie? 2, knowing Milwaukie has a limited tax base and budget, are there specific areas where you would reduce or increase funding? And 3, what are your thoughts related to the city of Milwaukee's relationship with surrounding jurisdictions?
I do just want to add, briefly. So we are looking at you having 15 minutes with each applicant. I actually don't think you have time to ask 6 questions. So I do think, just as we're going through this, either we need to trim down the numbers or we need to increase the amount of time. When we looked at how long it would take us to get through all 8 of those applications, if we gave a half an hour, it was a very late night, especially since one of you will be in a different time zone. And we were looking at this being like 1 a.m. end time. So I just wanted to make sure that either we trim the numbers or we change the ending of the night, right?
And I forgot to mention too, but council has a printed copy of these questions on the dice as well. So these are the first 3, and I would absolutely underscore Ann just said 15 minutes. That is rapid fire with 6 questions. So maybe we go through all 6 and then council can provide us rapid fire response about which ones you want to do and not do. So these are the first 3 that seem to be pretty straightforward. The next 3, 4, 5, and 6, there was consensus about these questions, but I got wording that was a little different for each. So here's the mashup. So there was support for a SAFE question about the SAFE program. And as you see on the screen here, the questions sort of like, what do you feel has been accomplished by the SAFE program? Do you think continuing the SAFE program is important? And then why or why not? And then should we maintain, increase, or reduce the SAFE program? At one point, I was tempted to try to wordsmith myself to present something to council, but it was different enough where I thought I'd defer to you. So, there's that question. The fifth question was the long one, and essentially it's the vision/goals question. I won't read it in its entirety, but it's a couple of ways of asking about what do you think about our goals. So there's that one. And then number 6 is kind of what do you hope to learn? How do you see yourself contributing in kind of this first 6-month period? And actually, since this is the interim, this would be the first 5 months, yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, on that one, 'cause doesn't this, they're only gonna be there from February to May, right?
Sure.
They're not even gonna have 6 months of council.
Right, so that 6-month reference should be cut. So those are the 6 questions, and I think I'm gonna stop sharing here and I'm gonna switch to a Word document that I can,
Well, so let me take what I think is an easy one, in the safe question, because part of that was my edits, and I'm happy to take out the second sentence and the why or why not, because I think that the other sentence, the should Milwaukie mean, I mean, I think that
which question was this? I'm sorry, Mayor.
the safe question, number 4.
Okay, what did you
I
say to
think,
cut?
what do you feel has been accomplished and should Milwaukie maintain, increase, or reduce? I think that's fine. I think that's asking, that's a different way of asking. Is continuing, do you want to continue it? I mean, both of those, both the second sentence and the last sentence are basically asking, do you think we should continue it or not?
So what you see on the screen there then?
Yeah. So, that's not what was on this.
He's editing as you're there.
Oh, okay.
I just edited it.
But I think it was not deleted.
Yeah, that was the sentence I would delete. Yeah.
Delete the first one?
No. The middle one. The middle one and the why or why not.
I got it.
There we go.
The inverse of what I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a safe question.
So I'm fine with that if that's.
I think that simplifies that question, and I agree. But I gotta tell you, I think we have to eliminate a minimum of 1 and possibly 2 questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or at least minimize that one.
It's gonna take you most of the time to read the questions.
Yeah, I'm not crazy about 5 either. I mean, it's weird to not have a question about your goals, but I don't. Yeah.
It's a loaded answer.
Yeah.
I mean, well.
Wait, are we talking about 5 now?
Yeah.
The goal question?
Yeah, because I mean, you could talk 15 minutes just answering that question.
Right.
And I don't know if giving I mean, yeah, you can't really sum that up in 2.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably what, for us, was the longest answer you gave was just how that, because you're hitting on every goal pretty much.
Am I hearing consensus to remove that question?
Or
Do we?
shorten it, or say like, how do you feel, like, what do you think are the city's goals, should be the city's goals? Do you feel the city's on the right track with its current goals? Something simple or more simplified than such a loaded.
I'm more inclined to remove it, I think, but, sounded like you're fine taking it
I
out.
think that it's gonna be partially answered in question 1 anyway.
Right. Right, 1 and 2 will kind of get to some of those.
We're down to 5.
All right, scrap 5.
Scrap 5.
Yeah, I think so. And what about, I don't know. I mean, I like 1, 2, and 4. I'm less enamored of 3 and 6. So,
3's interesting though, because it'd be interesting to hear if somebody has a more combative ideology towards the jurisdictional relationship, or if they're more of a, we have an issue, but I'm here to help solve it approach. Because I mean, we are gonna have to deal with county commissioners and other cities, and, you know, it would kind of help to see where people's heads are in terms of how they feel about neighboring jurisdictions. Because we have to work together with pretty much all of them at some point.
I mean, truthfully, we obviously have we have county issues, but I don't know how much we work with other jurisdictions. I mean, we don't do that much. I mean, we as council, I'm sure staff does. does. I'm sure staff does a lot with other jurisdictions. But we as council don't do much with Portland for sure. And, you know, we go to these Clackamas cities dinners, but we don't really engage with Gladstone or Oregon City other than personally.
Probably should, right?
I don't know. Counselor Savage looks like she has something.
Well, just some thoughts. I mean, when I think about surrounding jurisdictions, I think about the school district. I think about the Parks and Recreation district. So just, you know, any type of jurisdiction, not just cities or counties. So I think when I'm thinking about the bulk of what will come this person's way, I think that their first 6 months will consist of a lot of conversations with surrounding jurisdictions. And so, and I also think that, you know, what is question number apparently 5 now about what you hope to learn serving in this position and what would you do during the first 6 months? Drink from the fire hose. I mean, I think, I would rather hear them answer, you know, a question about surrounding jurisdictions.
So I think we have 4 that are presented on here. They're basically the original 3, and then keeping the safe question.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
I think we're done. So if I'm hearing council correctly, I think we're down to these 4 questions.
Is everybody on board for scrapping the 6th one? I'm okay.
I thought I heard a consensus to do that.
Scrap it, but I thought we just scrap on the 6-month question.
Well, I think just the right? That we're gonna have, I mean, some people will breeze through them and will be done in 7 minutes, but yeah. It'll be hard to keep some of them to 15. So, I think 4 questions is probably good.
You want to use the timer on the questions?
Good.
Robert's in charge.
Put pressure on.
Then we have to allocate how much time
I
we
mean,
get
3
for.
minutes each question is 16 minutes, it's just about 15 each.
3 is 12.
Oh, no, sorry.
3 is 12, but, yeah.
But do they get to give an opening statement or anything?
Usually you would let people.
Well, so there's your 15 minutes.
Oh, there was a question part where counselors asked us questions afterwards. Is that going to be part of it too?
You all are running this process entirely, and it can be different or the same as what's been done in the past. Typically, when you have somebody coming in, especially where maybe the community doesn't know who they are, it is helpful they haven't read the resume, so it's nice for them to be able to say, hi, I'm Hanover, I'm a Milwaukie resident, I've been here for blah, blah, blah. So you may just want to give them a few minutes at the start to introduce who they are and why they're here, and then go into the questions.
Good job after 30 seconds.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm torn about the timing thing. I mean, if I were answering these, I might want more time for one and less time for another, and so, but there is the danger that if you don't use the timer, then you run out 15 minutes on 2 questions.
Do you want me to just run this the way I would an interview? So what I would do is at 10 minutes, I would just say, hey, I just want to make sure you're aware you have 5 more minutes left on the interview.
Yeah.
We've got 3 more questions,
Yeah.
right? So something that allows people to shift their time to the question,
Yeah.
but
a good point.
gets you out somewhat quickly.
You can do that at 5 minutes.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they will, if they're paying attention, they'll know what questions are going to be asked. So they can be prepared.
Anyone online right
To go back to I'm sharing.
Nicole found out she only has to get pizza once a month, so
So
she bailed.
Yeah, we're done. There's nobody on Zoom.
We do.
We do. So we've got 4 questions. run with that?
4 questions and then an intro that they can do.
Okay. Wow.
And then we have the legislative update.
Yep. Updated the PowerPoint on this today. All right, I believe on Monday of this week, our legislature convened for its short 35-day session. Tomorrow is the exciting single revenue forecast of the session.
Oh.
So that should be interesting. And it could spell certain things for certain bills. I took the list that we had from last time, and I didn't have a ton of specific numbers, but I do think I found a few in O-list today based on what I'd heard before. Mayor Beatty expressed interest or noted the Measure 110 coalition, and so I searched on O-list for everything that referenced that, and those are the 2 Senate bills and the House bill that I found regarding those issues.
Yeah.
One has a hearing tomorrow. The Senate Bill 1555. There's still, I was noticing the legislation I noticed, a lot of it just been assigned to committee at this point, not a lot of hearings yet, but that one has a hearing. Then HB 4063, I believe that there was mention of the urban areas and unincorporated urban areas and need for housing, and that was HB 4063. It's in committee as well. And then the other items I wasn't as clear on from our last discussion, so from 23, HB 3414, land use regulation. I didn't see anything jumped out at me in a list on that, but I maybe wasn't using the right words to search for what that's about. And then there was a reference to Councilor Stavengeort's list. And
Yeah. Is it? Oh, look at you.
8, so that's SB 15.
15. Yeah, somebody sent us that right before I went on leave, and I went on vacation, and I haven't read it yet, but so let me just say on Measure 110, I had a conversation with Representative Gamba about how that's going and everything, and I had thought we would maybe want to do a letter, but I'm not. I think it's going on its own trajectory. They are going to do something on Measure 110 because of the potential for a ballot measure. They're trying to stave off a ballot measure. So it sounds like something on 110 will be passing, and it may not be, we may not all agree on what we think it should be anyway, and it may not be something we love, but it's not something I'm inclined to spend a lot of time on as I maybe thought a month ago.
Is it one of those 3 proposals?
Well, no, I think it'll be a cobbled together. It'll be a compromise bill, and yeah.
So nothing that they presented.
And then the housing one, I would just, we have a council reports section at the end of before we do the interviews next week, at the end of our study session. So maybe it would be good to loop back to that day, just to see if people have read it and what's going on with it. I do know the environmental groups are still somewhat unhappy with it. But I haven't read it. So has Joseph read it?
I'm not sure, he has not been in this week.
Oh, okay.
I did just want to add a piece of legislation, or at least a topic. I don't have a bill number at this time. So recreational immunity has been an issue that's come up over the course of the last year. We don't have the same responsibility for certain parks and amenities, but some of our trails, we do have some trails. And so we're going to be watching that legislation. I think it's probably worthwhile for you all to be tracking what LOC is talking about when it comes to recreational immunity. And if they write you and ask for your support, I would recommend that the city gives the support to LOC for addressing recreational immunity. I can get you more information for the next meeting, but it is one of LOC's top priorities, and it could be quite expensive depending on the lawsuit. So
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Yeah, please do keep us posted.
Okay.
I have not been. I mean, I read that court decision, which was bizarre, but yeah. I have not been following the legislation. Counselor Stavenger's list, do tell.
That's surprising to me too, but I feel so honored. The things that I'm looking for this session, I'm watching housing conversations, Measure 110 conversations, behavioral health conversations. And that while transportation package won't actually happen until the long session, the conversations have already started. So those are some of the primary areas. I think that something else that might be of interest and not for us to follow, but just for my list, is EMS modernization. I think I'll just keep tabs on that one. Don't need to add it to anything that you're monitoring, just in case. There's a regional discussion, which I'm sure you're all already aware of, around the staffing requirements for ambulance services. So yeah, just with regard to public safety and first responders in our city, I think that'll be important to watch. I don't think that there's, let's see, it was legislative concept 15. Looks like maybe House Bill 4081 at this point. But that's all that's on my list right now, but I'll be checking it twice.
Find out which one's naughty in this.
Anyone else on legislation?
I just downloaded the 1537 bill, if you guys want me to send that to you.
Great, yeah, anybody else?
So, it's not legislative. In past years, we've sometimes also managed intergovernmental affairs discussions in this space. So I did just want to bring up something I forgot to say during my discussion on the houseless support services that we're working on. There is a proposal for a project outside of the city boundaries. And there has been requests to some of you, actually a couple of you, I thought it was a good idea, to do a letter of support towards that project. So I don't have a lot of information about this.
I just
But there is, I believe it's a pod village that is possibly going into Oak Grove. So over our boundary, outside of our but close to the city services. And we've struggled to find land where something like this could be done. And so I just wanted to bring that up. I had a conversation with Councilor Cosrabati earlier today, and then I forgot to trigger the conversation earlier. So with that, I'm going to pass it over if you want to talk about a group letter.
Yes, and I think Councilor Stavanger is already aware of this, I believe, right? Yeah, so please feel free to cut me off if I don't do it justice. I visited a site just right outside Milwaukie that their Do Good Multnomah is looking to purchase and turn into a 30-pod shelter, basically. I guess it's transitional. I think 10 to 15% of those pods are supposed to be reserved for veterans as well. I think the land itself is like, what, an acre or something like that? It's pretty big. I drove by it the other day, actually. The house on the property would stay there. And then there's like a metal workshare, pretty big workshop there that they would keep and then turn that into a commissary and things like that, laundry and things like that. Also, they mentioned in this letter that it will be alcohol-free and drug-free, and the individuals that will be utilizing the pods will be subject to a background check as well. And I'm bringing that up because I know initially when these things go out into communities and into neighborhoods, the initial pushback is, those things: drug, alcohol use, crime. So I want to be clear that those are things that they're taking into consideration, and that's one of the ways that they're ensuring the public right of those concerns and those safety concerns. But again, we don't have much of that. The fact that it's as close as it is to Milwaukie, I think benefits us, considering in conjunction with the stabilization center as well, because that could be where that could be the immediate connection, right? Is like, okay, if we don't have anything set up right now, then you leave our stabilization center and then we can send you to the do good pod, right? Whatever they end up calling that location. There's not enough of that. So I think it would be beneficial. I don't think they've done outreach quite yet with the neighborhood. It's still early on, but I can see the benefits beyond what some might consider the negatives for that property. Just because again, the space, it's hidden behind some brush. They have plans to make it, they're obviously gonna have that good neighbor agreement, things like that. So we need more of this and we just don't have enough. And this is an opportunity. So if you all are
It's the one
interested.
the county is funding?
Is that right? Is it the county that's?
My understanding is that Do Good put in an application in the same cycle as the city-led proposals.
Oh, okay.
And so they are in the same boat, waiting to hear from the county. I did put in a personal letter of support, because the deadline to submit the application was the 31st, and it was before we would have met. So I would be happy to sign on to something if we wanted to do a letter of support on a larger scale.
Yeah, because they're still going to need to do that outreach, right? So I'm sure those letters would probably help.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I would say is, what I received in advance was a brief conversations, site plans. So if we are interested in putting a joint letter together that represents council, and we also don't have to deal with the constraint of a timeline, then I would recommend that maybe we have Daniel come and share more about the plans.
Sure.
Because then we can be more fully aware.
That'd be awesome.
And I do think one thing we have to anticipate is, is like what happened with the Project Turnkey, is that people will say, oh, it's not in your, of course you want it, it's not in your city. And so I do think it may be a juncture where we start talking more publicly about the stabilization center. To say, yeah, we're not NIMBYs here, so, yeah.
We can absolutely work on bringing them in. My guess is we're probably looking closer to March, just knowing what our schedules look like. But it looks like there's general interest from the council to have that discussion. If you have contact information and could send it over to Scott, we can reach out. Thank you. I really appreciate it. That's all I had.
Was there anything else on
That's it.
legislation before we?
That's everything I was tracking from previous conversations.
Mayor, I just had one announcement. I did have an opportunity to sit in on a community convening that was hosted by Love One in partnership with Representative Chavez Dreamer. And our Milwaukie Police Department and behavioral health specialist also participated there. And the conversation I felt was, I felt like it was good to highlight the needs and the gaps that we're experiencing here in Clackamas County. We were able to very strongly make the case that what's working in Milwaukie should be replicated across the county. And I'm looking forward to follow-up conversations from that, but I just wanted to let folks know because it's possible that you might also be engaged in some of the ripples of that conversation. So I just wanted to make it clear.
Great. Well, I read about that meeting, that session in the Milwaukie Review. So great. Glad you were there. Yeah. Good. Good. Any other council reports? Okay.
So this is the latest board meeting of the North Clackamas Watershed Council. And so they're embarking on a more formalized strategic planning process this time around. And so they're actually going to have a formal strategic offsite on April 4th and 5th. And so the board members were interviewed by the consultants who were going to facilitate all that. And so they interviewed two of us at a time. And so Mark Fitzsimmons and I spent about an hour with the consultants answering their questions. And so I'll let you know how that comes out come the spring. Most of the meeting was taken up by the mid-year adjustment of the budget. And because the sampling did not get completed last spring, it's kind of been moved in this spring. And so there's been a lot more higher fidelity work done there. And so let's see, it has to be done in the spring, and I have the dates here at some point, but I can't put my finger on them right now.
So they're gonna put the barge in, or whatever kind of platform it is that they were talking about last year?
The platform, it's got to go into two places. And it's got to go in, west of the bridge, and that will be put in at the dam off of the bridge in the middle of the night. Okay, and then it has to be moved toward east of the bridge, and then that requires going through the park to put the bridge in, which requires a permit, and so the city is aware of all of that, and so. We're really in a technical phase here, and so that report will be, once that sampling is done, and that, they like to say that sediment has been building up since Lincoln was a state representative. So it's like 25 feet minimum, and so they have to have a big stable platform to drill in there, and then Interfleet has to take that, submit the sampling plan to the Corps of Engineers and the EPA before that's done. And so at any rate, there'll be some disruption here in the spring when they complete that. But that's kind of shifted a lot of the grant money, into this year, and so that required the major mid-rear. I mean, the budget is sound right now, but it was some accounting issues that had to be taken care of by the board. Oh, one other thing, they engaged Representative DeReamer's staff. Because we have pretty high visibility and support from the senatorial delegation, but we needed to expand that to our House representative and everything like that, and so they had her staff come out and walk the site and look around.
Yeah, I joined them for that.
Oh, did you? Good. Okay. That's all I have.
Okay. Anne looks like she has something.
I just wanted to make sure people were aware. So the staff person who's been managing the Kellogg Dean project for us has resigned. And her last day will be in a week. So we will be looking for a new representative to work on that project. For the time being, Joseph Brelio will go to those meetings to make sure that the city's connected. And then when we have the new engineering staff on board, we will assign that to someone there. Thanks.
Thank you. Other council reports? What did I do with my script? No?
Well, I was gonna save this for next week, so I'll give you maybe the Cliff's Notes version really quickly. The TSP met for our second, conversation. That's the Transportation Systems Plan. We went through a community profile, general financial forecasts, some conversations about some of the foundational information, to kind of set the table for our future discussion. So that was a really good conversation. That group is lovely and very engaged. I mentioned the Love One DeReamer event. We also held the January meeting of the Milwaukie Redevelopment Commission Community Advisory Committee. So that group has been putting together some framework for 3 grant programs that would be available for folks that have a business or an interest in location in the urban renewal area. The Those three are the pre-application grant program, a tenant improvement grant program, a storefront improvement grant program, and within those, we've had some really vibrant conversation about what potential lies, in Milwaukee's unique way of implementing urban renewal programs like this. One of those that I'll highlight for you is what's being called the look-back policy. So if a business is located in the urban renewal area, they've opened in, let's say like the last year or so, that they could be considered for a reimbursement of pre-application fees or tenant improvements or storefront improvements. And when I think about some of the businesses that we've had to come here to council and we've engaged in conversation about building out more economic vitality in the city, I think that there are a lot of businesses that could benefit from that. So the next step on that is that they will be coming to council. And I don't know actually when that is scheduled, so stay tuned. No, sorry, this is with the Urban Renewal Area Community Advisory Committee. But speaking of C4, which is Clackamas County Coordinating Council, the last meeting was a discussion about mass transit investments. TriMet's Forward Together program, which is now like Forward Together 2.0. This is restoring services that were largely cut during COVID, building out the basis of investments after House Bill 2017. It adds to about 38% total growth, but it depends on having enough operators to be able to run those routes. A couple of things of note for Clackamas County. Line 33, as you are probably aware, has been streamlined from Clackamas Community College North to Portland, so that may impact some of the folks here in Milwaukie. Streamlined doesn't necessarily mean, how should I say? It means faster trips. It doesn't necessarily mean increased frequency. But that line was already frequent service, and so there should be a little bit of value add there. There are smaller remaining parts of the original line that will be line 31, and so I need to look at the map and find some specifics there. They're also looking at some night buses to replace some of the frequency loss along MAX routes. And the dismal news that was shared in that update is that TriMet is short probably about 300 operators right now. So if you know of anyone who is just waiting for that career change to be a TriMet operator, there are some interesting bonuses that are going out. So we have, let's see. We also talked about Clackamas Transit Services. So these are the smaller shuttles, the last mile shuttles, senior center shuttles, things like that, that kind of fill in the gaps where there's not a robust mass transit footprint. And another kind of piece that stood out for me in that meeting was that roughly 34% of Clackamas County lives outside of the TriMet service district. So we're very fortunate to live within that service district. But when the C4 committee is talking about transit improvements across the whole county, they're also kind of thinking about how we can piece together that transit network, and that it's not all TriMet. It might be some of these smaller shuttles. And last mile transit folks. So that's what I have for right now. I may have a little bit more next week in our reports, depending on how much time we have left over. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And on the bus point, I think I sent an email around with some of those links to the Better Together. But the other thing they're doing is they are adding all-day service or midday service to the route, and I'm not going to remember the number, but the route that serves the new mental health clinics on Lake Road, just east of Milwaukie. So that, the county bought that building, that Pamplin building, to make into mental health clinics. And that route only had rush hour service. It had like 3 buses in the morning and 3 buses at the end of the day. It will now have service through the day, not very frequent service. It's like once every 45 minutes or something, but it at least will have some service through the day. So that's a start.
Thank you for your advocacy around that.
Yeah. Other things to report. We do still have an executive session, so I guess I will read the script on that. After the regular session, council will meet in executive session pursuant to Oregon Revised Statute 192.660 to consult with counsel concerning the legal rights and duties of a public body with regard to current litigation or litigation likely to be filed, and to consider information or records that are exempt by law from public inspection. All right, with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn the regular session.
I move.
I'll start over. Adjourn the regular session.
I'll second
It's
that.
been moved and seconded to adjourn the regular session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. None heard. The regular session is adjourned.